Chapter 7. Ghosts. The automobile was approaching a traffic light. Nancy decided that if the signal turned red, she would make a desperate attempt to escape. First, she must distract the woman's attention. "It would be very foolish of you to hold me prisoner," she said in a firm tone of voice, "especially since the original map has been stolen." "We know all about that," the man answered. "Perhaps you engineered the theft," Nancy said coldly. "Not on your life. I overheard Tomlin Smith tell about the map and the duplicate you made of it. You've got it." The woman added, "You sneaked it out of your purse this afternoon." "Are you sure I was the one who removed it? Maybe your friend can explain what happened to it. Why don't you ask him?" Nancy suggested. The man slammed on the brakes to keep from passing through the red traffic light. Angrily, he glared over his shoulder at Nancy. "What are you trying to do, stir up trouble?" he demanded. "I don't know what you're talking about. I never took that map from your pocketbook." "Your conscience seems to be bothering you," Nancy said. "Fred, if you think you can double-cross me," the woman shouted. "If you have—" "Oh, shut up, Irene," the man bellowed. "You make me tired." "You're working with Dodie and leaving me out," she accused him, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "You want to get all the money for yourself and cut me out." With the two absorbed in their quarrel, Nancy knew this was her opportunity to escape. It was a long light, and in a moment the traffic signal would flash green. Nancy tore herself from the woman's vice-like grasp and jerked open the car door. She tumbled out onto the ground, tripping over her white robe, but picked herself up and began to run. "Stop her, Fred!" Nancy heard the woman shout. "Don't let her get away!" Nancy was frantic. On either side of the highway were deep ditches and high fences separating her from open fields. She kept running, but knew that if her agile captor took after her on foot, she would be caught. A second later, a car's headlights flashed behind her. "The kidnappers won't dare bother me with witnesses in the vicinity," she thought, "and maybe I can get a ride." Nancy knew that normally it was unwise to signal strangers for a ride, but in this emergency she must try to stop the approaching automobile. She held up her arms and waved them crossways. There was a squeal of brakes. The car drew up a few yards away. "Don't stop, Henry," cried the woman beside the driver. "Go on. You know you shouldn't pick up hitchhikers. Besides, this one's dressed up like a ghost." Nancy had forgotten about her costume. Fearful that the couple would not help her, she called out, "Wait! I'm not a ghost! Please wait!" To her great relief, the driver obeyed. Nancy ran to the car. Without waiting for an invitation, she climbed into the rear seat. "Oh, thank you," she said, gasping for breath. "The people in that car back there tried to kidnap me. Drive on quickly, please." "What?" the pair exclaimed in astonishment, and the woman added, "Why are you dressed up like that?" Nancy explained quickly and noted with relief that the kidnappers were making no attempt to pursue her. "You don't say," the driver remarked. "I suppose the kidnapping was like an initiation or something?" Nancy was about to explain, but decided she did not want to cause the couple further alarm. Instead, she said, "I'm just so glad you came by. Would it be out of your way to take me to the Emerson Gymnasium?" "I'd be glad to drop you there," the man replied. 20 minutes later, Nancy was running up the walk toward the college building. As she did, someone called from behind a clump of bushes. "Nancy, is that you?" She recognized Ned's voice and said, laughing, "Yes, did you miss me?" "Don't be funny. We were worried sick," said Bill Tomlin, who was with Ned. "What happened to you?" "I was kidnapped. Ned, it was the same couple who followed me this afternoon. But we must keep the whole thing quiet." "You mean you're not going to notify the police?" Ned demanded disapprovingly. "No, not until I've talked to Dad. For now, we must pass off my disappearance as a joke." The boys frowned at each other. Then Ned spoke. "Jeff Garwin went inside a minute ago to call police headquarters. I suppose you want me to try to stop him." "Please do, Ned," Nancy replied. "I don't want any publicity." While Ned hurried into the building, she and Bill Tomlin walked at a more leisurely pace. Nancy related the highlights of her harrowing experience. Then she told Bill of her search for the missing Captain John Abner Tomlin. "Can you give me any clues?" "Captain Tomlin died when I was very young. I really don't know much about him or his twin brother. My father could tell you a lot more." "I suppose your parents live some distance from here," Nancy commented thoughtfully. "No," Bill said, "in Kirkland." "Why, I'll be passing through there on my way to River Heights." "Then why not stop and talk to my father? He owns the Elite department store and no doubt will be in his office." "I hope he won't think I'm prying." "He'd be glad to see you," Bill declared. "I'll phone him and say you're coming." Nancy was glad that Bill Tomlin had taken her curiosity so casually. She did not want to divulge any information about the Smiths or their possible inheritance. When Nancy finally returned to the gymnasium, several young men and girls swarmed around her. She answered their questions, giving the impression that her disappearance was nothing more than a fun adventure connected with the pantomime. Her explanation seemed to satisfy everyone, and once more the party got into full swing. In the morning, Nancy was awake early, eager to start for Kirkland. To her disappointment, she did not see Bill Tomlin again, but Ned brought a message about him. "Bill says his dad will be expecting you." "Good," said Nancy as she stepped into her car. "I've had a wonderful time, Ned. Thanks a million for everything." "I wish you could have stayed until after lunch," he complained good-naturedly. "Please don't take any shortcuts. Stick to the main roads and you won't be kidnapped." "You can depend on my obeying orders, sir," Nancy laughed. "And thanks for a grand time." The trip to Kirkland took less than an hour, and Nancy was certain that she had not been followed. Without difficulty, she located the Elite department store, and in a short while was escorted to Mr. Tomlin's office. "Good morning," Bill Father said cordially, motioning her to a chair. "I understand you're interested in the Tomlin family history." "Yes, I am. Friends of mine are trying to trace some lost family history. May I ask you a few questions?" "I'll do my best to answer them." Nancy inquired about Captain Tomlin, the third in his family to follow the sea. The store owner confirmed that the man had died many years ago while on a voyage to Japan. "He was Captain John Tomlin and was a cousin of mine," he remarked. "A wonderful man. I thought a lot of him." "Did he have a middle name?" "I'm sure he had one, but it has slipped my mind at the moment." Nancy went on. "Your son told me he had a twin brother." "Yes," Mr. Tomlin replied. "I don't know whether he's dead or alive." "Did Captain John Tomlin leave a widow and children?" was Nancy's next question. "He married but had no children to my knowledge. I've never heard what happened to his wife. She disappeared after his death." "What was Captain Tomlin like?" Nancy queried. "Did he have any hobbies?" "Yes, he enjoyed collecting things. Rare seashells, for instance. I still have one he gave me. I've kept it all these years." Mr. Tomlin opened a desk drawer. After hunting through a pile of papers, he brought out a small, colorful seashell. "This is called a lion's paw," he said, offering it to Nancy. "It's a type of clam found in East Indian waters. Its Latin name is Hippopus maculatus. It's very pretty." "Did the captain have other hobbies?" Nancy asked. "He was considered an authority on old songs of the sea. He could sing dozens of them." "Then he must have had a good voice," Nancy commented. She was interested in this piece of information. It might be a clue. Everything she had learned seemed to confirm her idea that Captain John Tomlin was Tomlin Smith's missing brother, John Abner. Feeling that she owed Bill's father an explanation for asking so many questions, she mentioned her theory to him. "I should like to meet Tomlin Smith," he said. "I wonder if the two were identical twins." "I don't believe so. As far as I know, there is no resemblance between them." "Somewhere at home I have a photograph of Captain Tomlin," the store owner said thoughtfully. "Would that be of any help to you?" "Oh, yes. Mr. Smith should be able to identify the picture." "Then I'll mail it to you if I can find it," Mr. Tomlin promised. "Just write your address on this pad." Nancy was elated by the successful interview. feeling that she had taken a long step towards solving the mystery about the owner of the other half of the map. As she walked lightheartedly through the store toward an exit, she decided to phone Bess and went to a booth. "Hi, Bess," she began. "I'm on my way to Mrs. Chatham's estate, but Dad doesn't want me to go there alone. Could you and George meet me there in half an hour?" "I'll be glad to come," Bess answered instantly. "I'll call George." "This is what I'd like you to do for me," Nancy said. "I'm going to investigate the music studio, but I don't want Mrs. Chatham to know it. Could you both keep her engaged in conversation?" "Will do," Bess promised. "Please be careful." After chatting for a moment longer, Nancy left the store. She drove on toward Rocky Edge, arriving ahead of her friends. As she glanced up the road, wondering how long they would be delayed, she was startled to hear a shrill scream. The cry had come from the area near the building which Trixie called Ship Cottage. Nancy sprang from her car and dashed toward the spot. Emerging from among the oak trees, she caught a glimpse of the little girl. Trixie Chatham was running away from the studio, her hair blowing wildly across her face. "Ghosts! Ghosts!" she screamed. "I saw them! They're in the cottage!" The child did not see Nancy, nor hear her soothing voice as she called to the little girl. In panic, Trixie scrambled through a hedge, straight into the path of an oncoming car. End of chapter 7.